Zion Williamson, he's one of the most explosive scorers in the NBA. We know the talent that's at his disposal. He has the ability to be a top 10 player in the league. The bad is the fact that this is a man who looks lethargic. No effort, no drive, no enthusiasm. It seemed like when the going got tough, we saw Zion shrink. He should have been more aggressive. Why was it that he wasn't taking the ball in his own hands? Why was it that we were seeing Brandon Ingram and CJ McCollum and Herb Jones and Jonas Valanciunas all have more shots than him? Tied for the second biggest plus minus in this game at minus 33. Because his points amounted to nothing and his effect on the floor amounted to nothing. Though he should be the biggest metric of concern for any team that he goes up against. Yet he was seen as non-existent. I forgot he was on the floor from time to time when he played in this game. Completely taken out of everything that the Pelicans wanted to do, or that they could do. And it's not just because of the Lakers defense, it's because he himself, Zion, wasn't taking initiative to make something happen for himself, forcing his presence to be noticed, acknowledged, and feared. That's what Zion needs to do, and he hasn't done it, and he didn't do it. And seemingly, we're looking at a player who, whenever we think he's got the drive, loses it. Every time he's got a spark of this can be something great, loses it. The elevation is never sustained. It's only reached for a time, and then it falls back down. In the NBA, his athleticism is something that is still of the 1% of the 1% when it comes to the NBA. Yet we don't see it on a night-to-night basis. It is infuriating to have this as a real talking point for a player that I have vouched for and I'm still high on, but he continues to let me down because he won't do what needs to be done. I don't like saying that somebody doesn't like working. I don't like saying that somebody's lazy, but in this case, again, every time I think he's got his work ethic back up, he looks bad off again. Looked out of shape this game. Was struggling to get up and down the floor. Charles Barkley said it best on TNT. Zion is supposed to be the best player on his team. Right now, he's looking like the third best player on the squad, especially that night. And he's comfortable with it. That's the problem. He's comfortable with it. If he wasn't comfortable with it, we would see him be the best player on his team. But seemingly, Zion consistently isn't giving indications to make it so that he is showing that he's not comfortable with being seen as the third best player. With him playing under his value and ability. We know that is not what Zion is capable of in terms of where he can actually play it. We know he can play as one of the best players in the world. We know he can score 30 and 35. Easy. But he's complacent with where he's at. And the work ethic that we're seeing from Zion seemingly isn't bearing fruit, nor is it sustainable. We don't want to see a generational talent fall by the wayside just because the work ethic wasn't put there. We should be saying Zion Williamson is one of the premier superstars of a generation, not of a decade, not of a couple of seasons, of a generation. An absolute game changer in what we see a player can be in the NBA. One of the most physically imposing and dominant players that we've seen in the NBA in the history of the league. Took what Charles Barkley was and amped that up to 11. Which is insane and scary to watch. Mind you, Charles Barkley's about to one MVP. So again, those are some good high hopes to have, and that's what we should be saying about Zion Williamson. Charles Barkley on steroids. We're in the running for one of the most physically imposing figures that we've seen in the history of basketball. Period. But we're not at this point in time. All of the athleticism, all the skill, all the dominance is muddied and clouded by the lack of work ethic and the consistent regression, seemingly, of the evolution that we keep thinking Zion's going to take. Every time. And your potential is going to kill you in terms of if you're Zion Williamson. Because your potential is going to lead you to thinking that, okay, I can get it at any point in time. Like I said earlier, but it's not the case. The potential that you have can cause you to become a shell of what you need to be. I don't want to look at Zion Williamson as a player who was incredible, but never reached what we thought he could get to. I don't want to say that about Zion. But right now, that's the fear. Because that fear is reality. We could be saying that about Zion Williamson. Not that he's one of the most physically imposing, gifted, scary, and athletic freaks of nature that we've ever seen grace the basketball court. Denting floors when he lands. Ripping basketballs out of the strongest players in the league. Walling up 7-footers. Running through anybody that goes his way. Making people get out of the way because they don't even want to take a charge against a player of his size moving at the speed that he moves. With the handles that he has at his disposal. And the absolute insane, world-class, all-time Hall of Fame level verticality and explosion that is in his body. I don't want to overlook that and have the one takeaway from his career being he could have been better. It could have been more. He was great, but I don't want to have to say but when it comes to Zion Williamson. I don't want to have to say but when it comes to talking about his career. I don't want to have to add a but when we're talking about what he achieved. But right now, we're going to have a conversation whenever we have a talk about Zion Williamson. He's great, but he's not where he needs to be. And it's insane that this is the case, but it's the reality of what we're experiencing when it comes to Zion. We're going to look at Zion's career as a career that was muddied by what ifs and buts, both literally and figuratively. If you know, you know. If you know, you know. Athletic, but no work ethic. Average 27, but never did it again. Could dunk on anybody, but succumbed to his weight and lost the work ethic necessary to keep that same athleticism where it needs to be. Was the best player on the Pelicans, but he stopped trying. Zion Williamson's career is going to be a career filled with buts, doubt, and outright disappointment if he does not get it together. He's hurting himself in that aspect, and I hate it. I despise it, and I hope it changes because I don't want that for him. I don't want that for his career. I don't want that for his legacy.